This is no longer just a battlefield story. It's a signal. Across Russia, something unusual is happening. Captured NATO weapons are being put on public display. Abrams tanks, Leopard 2s, Western armored vehicles that were once seen as symbols of technological superiority, now sitting in city squares. Photographed, filmed, reframed. But this isn't random, and it's definitely not just about war trophies. Because what Russia is doing here goes far beyond the battlefield. This is about controlling perception. And in modern warfare, perception can be just as powerful as firepower. In most conflicts, destroyed equipment is either abandoned or scrapped. But this war is different. Instead of eliminating captured NATO-supplied systems, Russian forces are actively recovering them, even under difficult battlefield conditions. Damaged tanks are pulled from contested zones. Armored vehicles are transported across long distances. Even heavily burned hulls are not ignored. Why? Because every piece has value. Once removed from the front lines, these systems are sent to rear area facilities where they are inspected, cleaned, and in some cases partially restored. Then comes the transformation. They are no longer battlefield debris. They become exhibits. Placed in public squares during major events like Victory Day, these captured vehicles are presented to civilians as proof of something larger. Not just survival, but dominance. And the staging is deliberate. Angles, positioning, even cosmetic changes are designed to maximize visual impact. This is not documentation. This is storytelling. What makes this even more significant is that it's not happening randomly. It's organized. Units, such as the 68th Guards Army Corps, are directly involved in the recovery and evacuation of captured NATO equipment. This is a formation based far from the front lines, yet still integrated into the process. That alone tells you something. Specialized recovery teams operate with heavy equipment designed to extract damaged vehicles under combat conditions. And they don't just prioritize usable systems. Even destroyed vehicles are retrieved, because their value is not limited to combat. Once transported, these systems are cataloged, analyzed, and sometimes rebuilt into display-ready forms. By assigning this mission to a Guards-level unit, Russia sends a clear internal message. This is not opportunistic. This is doctrine. Captured NATO equipment is not an accident of war. It is part of the expected outcome. There's now a specific term being used in Russian military and media circles: trophyization. And that word matters, because it reflects intent. This is no longer about isolated incidents of captured gear. It's a systematic process of collection, restoration, and presentation. Each item is labeled, each system is categorized, and most importantly, each one is framed as Western, NATO-made, foreign. In some exhibitions, older Soviet-era tanks are placed next to captured Western vehicles. The comparison is intentional: old versus new, domestic versus foreign. And yet, the visual conclusion is the same: the Western system lost. This creates a powerful narrative shortcut. Viewers don't need technical analysis. They see the outcome, and they draw their own conclusions. But it doesn't stop there. These displays are increasingly tied to recruitment efforts. In some areas, captured NATO vehicles are positioned near enlistment points. The message becomes interactive. You're not just witnessing victory, you can be part of it. That's where propaganda turns into mobilization. This is where the strategy becomes even more important, because the primary target is not the battlefield. It's the human mind. Every image of a captured Abrams tank, every video showing a damaged Leopard, every viral clip builds a narrative layer by layer. Inside Russia, this reinforces a specific worldview: that the country is not just fighting Ukraine, but confronting the full weight of Western military support and holding its ground. This taps into deeper historical memory. During World War II, captured German equipment was displayed in Soviet cities as proof of victory. That imagery carried emotional weight, and today it's being reused. But now, the symbolic opponent is NATO. This reframing is critical. It transforms a regional war into something much larger, a continuation of historical struggle. And in that context, sacrifice becomes easier to justify. Losses become acceptable, because they are part of a bigger story. Meanwhile, outside Russia, analysts point out a different reality. Many of these vehicles are heavily damaged. Some are abandoned due to mechanical failure, not direct combat destruction. Others are incomplete or misidentified, but those nuances rarely matter in a controlled media environment because visual impact often overrides technical accuracy, and once an image spreads, it becomes its own form of truth. But reducing this to propaganda alone would be a mistake. There are tangible military advantages. Captured NATO equipment provides access to advanced Western technology, often under real combat conditions. Engineers can examine armor composition, study sensor systems, analyze communication equipment. Even partially destroyed vehicles can reveal design philosophies and operational weaknesses. This information can then be used to refine tactics, develop countermeasures, and improve survivability against similar systems in the future. There's also a training benefit. Russian forces can use captured equipment to familiarize troops with NATO systems, how they look, how they move, how they might be deployed. In some cases, components can even be repurposed. For Ukraine and its allies, this creates a compounding problem. Every lost vehicle is not just a reduction in combat capability, it's a transfer of knowledge. And over time, that knowledge can shift the balance in subtle but important ways. But there's another layer to this. The more these systems are captured and analyzed, the more predictable they become. Patterns emerge: how they're deployed, how they're supported, how they fail under pressure. And once those patterns are understood, they can be exploited, not just tactically on the battlefield, but strategically, shaping future engagements before they even begin. And over time, this creates a feedback loop, where each captured system doesn't just reveal information, but accelerates adaptation. Meaning the next encounter is no longer equal, it's informed, and potentially one step ahead. Which means the impact of a single captured vehicle doesn't end where it was lost. It continues, quietly influencing decisions, tactics, and outcomes long after the battlefield has moved on. This is the evolution of modern warfare, where destruction is only half the story, and what comes after, the images, the displays, the narratives, can be just as powerful. By turning captured NATO weapons into public trophies, Russia is extending the battlefield far beyond Ukraine, into cities, into media, into perception. Each tank on display is no longer just a machine. It's a message, a carefully constructed signal designed to influence how the war is seen, understood, and remembered. And as long as those images continue to circulate, the conflict will not only be fought with weapons, but with narratives powerful enough to shape reality itself.